So you're saying it's kind of like my mental condition, unstable.
Yeah, Brian, remember what goes on in session stays in session.
That's true. That's true.
All of a sudden, whoa, what's going on here? It was wiggling and all sorts of stuff.
I thought I was playing hot potato. Change that to 1.8 seconds, and that'll give yourself, if you really know the keyboard, enough time to type if you want to leave this slide to type on.
I know your keyboard on your Mac probably has 120 different reroutes, re-commands, and everything like that. It's crazy. So don't ever send that my way.
They don't call me a psychopath for no reason. The status bar on the 8 Plus seems to have really shrunk down on the 8 Plus. It's a little frustrating.
There's one other thing that I did right away is I went into my phone app, went down. I know, phone app. It's in the phone, believe me. Do a 2-finger spread, like your index and your thumb, and spread it open like you make something larger or something.
The voice-over breaststroke.
The voice-over breaststroke.
Bum 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 bum. iOS 13.1 is here, and this is another That Blind Tech Show short and special edition. I'm here today with Jeff Thompson. We've both been running iOS 13.1. Jeff, you held off to updating until 13.1 dropped. Why'd you do that?
Because I listened to you, Brian. I heard you complain many, many times. And you said this is a short one. That's funny that Serena's not here. She would be like championing this.
Height jokes, Jeff? Really? Height jokes?
Hey, vertically challenged, not height. Don't talk about height.
I always feel bad when they're talking about an athlete and they're like, he's 6'2", so he's kind of small. I'm like, in what world is 6'2" small? I think every Yankee pitcher is at least 6'3".
I thought I had a chance at shortstop.
How tall are you, Jeff?
Brian, that's kind of personal.
It's not personal. I want the listeners to know because, they don't really want to know about iOS 13.1.
Right, because on the podcast, I'm about 6'4".
Are you really?
On the podcast, you just heard it. Listen back.
Yeah, and we know everything you hear on That Blind Tech Show is the truth.
Oh, yeah, but don't quote us.
Especially during term papers, homework assignments, or anything where you could get in trouble.
No, like Serena said, we don't reference That Blind Tech Show.
No, bad That Blind Tech Show. Bad That Blind Tech
That's
Show.
right.
I'm still on your lines.
Bad Brian. Bad Brian. But 13.1 has some bad stuff in it, but there's also some really good stuff. It's off to a what do you call it? Unstable start, but it looks like it's promising, and it's just I can't wait for 13.2 already.
So you're saying it's kind of like my mental condition, unstable.
Yeah, Brian, remember what goes on in session stays in session.
That's true. That's true. Let's start off with a positive. I installed it today. I had been running the beta, and I spent a lot of time this past weekend with the beta on my old device, and I was really happy with it. And I got it installed on my main device today, and the first thing I noticed, Jeff, how fast and responsive VoiceOver is. Remember the days when we worried about a lag? And now I'm running an 8 Plus, so it is a newer phone. If you're running a 6 or something, it could have some lag on it. I didn't notice any lag, and you're running an even newer phone to me. How fast and responsive did you think VoiceOver was?
Shoom! It's lickety, flickety, quickety fast. It's just bang, bang, bang. As you move it around, you're just you gotta kind of buckle up, crack your knuckles, and get into this thing because it's good. It's really good. You cannot have Cheetos with this speed on this phone.
No, Cheetos, are you talking about the cheese that's on your hands, touching your screen and everything? Oh, that just sounds bad.
It's not a good mix.
But the Cheetos might slow you down. Hey, have you ever come across a blind person that puts all those braille dots, bumps on their phone so they know where they are on the phone?
Well, what happens when they go to a different app?
It's so they know where they are. I had a student one time who did that. I'm like, who told you to do this? And people out there, do not put braille dots on your phone. It'll make your life a living nightmare. I don't think most of our listeners are doing that. But another thing I noticed, I did use 13.1 on my 8 Plus, both with the AirPods as well as my Bose frames, and I didn't notice any latency or anything. Everything sounded really good.
No, but the thing I noticed right away when I opened it up is I had to turn off the vibration and haptics. That's something that was just brand new. It reminded me of holding a Remington shaver. All of a sudden, whoa, what's going on here? It was wiggling and all sorts of stuff.
I thought I was playing hot potato when I first got 13.1 installed because this thing was getting ready to jump out of my phone. And you've witnessed over the phone, you've heard my phones try and break themselves jumping off my
End table
and nightstand. Can you imagine what it would have done with the haptics installed?
It would have been out there sooner. I'm just glad it was over the phone and not by a nudge. What I did right away is I thought I had it figured out. I was going to turn off the haptics. And that's a simple thing of going into your settings, going down to sounds and haptics, and turn off haptics. But that wasn't enough. There's another setting they have to do.
Yeah, you have to go into VoiceOver, and we now know VoiceOver accessibility is in a whole new section. It's in the main page, so you go past general. Don't even go into general, because if you're looking for accessibility in general, you ain't gonna find it.
Yeah. Just go 3 single finger swipes to the right more, and you'll be on accessibility.
Yeah. You go into there, you double tap, you get into VoiceOver, and you want to go down to audio, and you one finger double tap, of course, to open that, and you go down, you keep flicking, and you do some more flicking, because there's a lot of settings nowadays with VoiceOver. And eventually, you get to turn haptics off, and I'll tell you what, it was great once I got it turned off in both places, because my phone, it didn't feel like a hot potato anymore, Jeff.
Really? So now what you going to do?
Now I'm going to move on and find out something else that was annoying me, because you know me, something's always got to be pissing me off. But no, once the haptics got turned off, I then went into my VoiceOver settings, and most of us are probably going to want to turn off is the slide to type, because when I was playing around with this in the beta, Jeff, on 13, I started to type and I thought Apple completely broke touch typing because I had all these weird words popping up and everything. How do you get rid of this, Jeff?
Well, it's in settings. And what you do is you go into settings, you go down to general, and you open that up, go down to keyboard. And in there, a ways down, probably about 15 swipes or so, you're going to find slide to type. And you'll find that it's on. You can turn it off right there. But while you're there, swipe one more past that with a single finger, swipe to the right, and you'll see where it'll delete the word when that slide to type is on. That's kind of handy, because if it does come up with a word that you don't want, you can just hit delete. It deletes the whole word, not the letter. It's kind of like flick type, but it's not. And if you're going to be typing a little bit, it's fun to play with. It's experimental to me at best, and I just had to shut it off.
Yeah, one thing I will tell listeners, if they do want to experiment with it and they do decide to leave it turned on, under VoiceOver, there is a setting where I believe it's under typing, obviously. So you go to accessibility, VoiceOver typing. You could delay the slide to type. I changed mine from I think by default, it's like 0.5 seconds, which is half a second or something. And it's just way too fast. And I'm a fast typist. And what that's responding to is when you lift your finger or move your finger over the keyboard to type another key. Change that to 1.8 seconds. And that'll give yourself, if you really know the keyboard, enough time to type if you want to leave this slide to type on. I've turned mine off, but I had it on for a few days, and changing it to 1.8 made a lot of difference. It wasn't popping up. Say I touched an E and I wanted an R, before you would move over to the R right next to it, that slide to type was popping up. So just change the time that would pop up.
Yeah, it is interesting to use. And the first thing that you notice, if the first word you want to say is Serena. There's a name that we haven't used all podcast.
Yeah.
So if you start with S, then you'll hear S, and then you start moving to the E. And if you get closer, it might say C or another word. You will not hear the second letter or the third letter. Just keep moving in the pattern that you believe those letters are in. And after a while, the dictionary will say, they must be trying that. And it'll keep on throwing these words at you. So keep on moving around. And if you don't like it, just lift your finger and hit delete. It'll delete the word that it came up with.
And when you're saying you should touch where the delete button is on the keyboard, typically, to delete that word?
Right. Once you lift your finger, because after you do a word, say you wanted to get the word hotel, after it says hotel, lift your finger, then you go to the next word that you're going to do. If it says hotel and you didn't want that, you wanted it to say hot or something of that nature, hottest or something close to that, then you would just hit delete, go to where delete is, it'll say delete, and it'll get rid of that whole word. But if you decide later, then you have to go back and take out each by individual character, like LETOH. That's pretty good backwards, huh?
Yeah, not too bad, but my head feels like it's going to explode, because touch typing I'm great on, but I've never even figured out, what's the other one? Direct touch type or whatever that? I've never even figured out how that one works.
Yeah, touch typing, I like that one. You slide around to get the letter, lift off, slide around, lift off. That works for me. But this one, slide to type, I gave it a good go. I've had the beta on my iPhone 7. I was trying it. I ended up shutting off because when you inadvertently just want to send out a quick message, you want to go in there, you want to type, and all of a sudden if it starts working because you forgot about it and you slow down that little bit, it's like, oh no, what's going on?
Yeah. One of the most exciting things that I was looking forward to with 13.0, and I really do enjoy, is the ability to customize so much more than we've ever been able to customize with VoiceOver. Jealous much, Android users? Because that's always something I've heard Android people saying, oh, I can't customize VoiceOver on my iPhone, which is why I'm on Android. But Jeff, now Apple has completely blown the doors off what we can customize, and I think this is just the beginning. For example, commands. You could now, not every gesture, because you're not going to want to change your one finger flick left and one finger flick right, but your touch gestures, Jeff, you could now assign gestures to flicks that have never had them, like your two finger flick left or right, or you could get rid of some gestures. I know I've had some students that have hated that three finger double tap that's mute VoiceOver. Well, you don't like that? Now you can get rid of it. So what were your thoughts about customization and commands?
I jumped in right away, and the first thing I did was go into the rotor, and I switched it from the twist to two-finger swipe to the right and two-finger swipe to the left, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, my first one, I was a little different because I have no issue. I like the rotor. I guess I'm one of the few. So I set that to two-finger flick to the left is go to previous heading, and two-finger flick right to next heading, because believe it or not, people, headings aren't just used in Safari. Some apps make great use of headings. That was the first thing I did. One of the things that I put out on Twitter that I discovered when playing around with the beta, Jeff, four-finger single tap, which doesn't have any assignment next to it, but if you've been using an iPhone for a while, you know if you do a four-finger single tap to the top, it takes you to the first element on the screen, and a four-finger single tap on the bottom to the last element. Well, I went in and I said, four-finger single tap, bring up Notification Center. Only problem was it kind of nullified the four-finger tap at the top and bottom, Jeff. So people out there, do not change that customization if you like using that four-finger to go to the beginning or end.
Brian, as a teacher, one of the biggest things for students to learn was the rotor dial. You know, turning the rotor and figuring that out. I couldn't believe how many people have an issue with that twisting, you know, like a combination on a lock or a tube of toothpaste, as we mentioned in our last show.
Or chubby checker.
Yeah, the twist. I just tried it, and I believe I put it back because I don't mind it. I bet you anything, that's one of the biggest things that are going to be changed. And what's really nice about it, if you change something to something else, it keeps a running list of everything else, so you can't duplicate these things. So if you ever decide, I really screwed this all up, can't remember anything, you can go back to factory settings right at the bottom of that list and reset it all.
And something, as it's getting onto what you're teaching, I always find it funny when I'm teaching a new student that's never used the iPhone, to launch VoiceOver Help, four-finger double tap, the most complicated gesture you're ever going to do. So it's great. You could now set that to a one-finger triple tap, which is obviously much easier to do. So that way students could get going much easier and everything. I love the customization that these gestures and commands are allowing us. I did set the one-finger triple tap to notifications and a one-finger quadruple tap to Control Center because the status bar on my 8 Plus doesn't always seem to be there, and this will just help me speed up time. One thing that our good friend Ed Plumacher brought up, he says, wow, with all this customization we could do that might make a new student's life easier, I hope there's a way to just easily set them once and port those gestures over to somebody. Maybe a few operating systems down the road, because I don't believe you could do that yet, Jeff.
No, I really don't want to import other people's settings. I know your keyboard on your Mac probably has 120 different reroutes, recommands, and everything like that. It's crazy. So don't ever send that my way.
They don't call me a psychopath for no reason, but that's on the computer side, Jeff. On the iPhone, I think what Ed was talking about, you set up a bunch of gestures for a first-time student instead of having to go in each time and set those gestures to quickly, import them and everything. I don't think there's a way to do that, but I'm sure it's, just like on the Mac, how you could save your VoiceOver commands to a thumb drive. I'm sure there will be a way to do it pretty soon on the iPhone. Something else along with commands that came to the iPhone was activities. Jeff, what were your thoughts about playing around with activities for the first time on the iPhone?
First thing I did, I went in, I was using the Siri voice on one of my phones, and I went in and switched over the mail to Alex. And that was really neat because as soon as you hit the mail, boom, you got that other voice. You know exactly you're in there. It's another comfort zone instead of, switching totally. So you get to play with some other voices here and there, especially for that particular activity.
Yeah. And I set up a male voice for my sports apps. No, I'm not being sexist. I was just trying to think of, well, what do I want to do? And I don't think activities are just there yet. What I'd like to see eventually in activities, I mean, they work fantastically well, people. So if you do want different voices for different applications, they work great. There's not a lot of meat to it yet. What I'd love to see eventually under activities, Jeff, sometimes navigating tables is more important in an app. So say you switch to an app, maybe you could customize some special gestures for that app with an activity, kind of like you can do on the Mac. That's where I think we'll eventually get to with activities. Right now, I don't really see me using them that much, though. Jeff, one of the things that people are probably most looking forward to with iOS 13 and 13.1 now is voice control. And I played around with it for a little in the betas, but I was using it on older devices and it just seemed slow and clunky. So I did try it today once I put 13.1 on my new device, and I actually had some fun with it. I thought it was pretty fast and responsive. I went into Yahoo Fantasy and it does some really cool things. I've got multiple teams. It would give you hints, which is pretty cool. It'd say use the word tap, and I'd say tap next week, and it would jump me from week 4 to week 5. I'd say tap team selector. It was really cool. I found it quite responsive. Sometimes VoiceOver does interfere with it because you got to remember, people, I don't believe this was created especially for VoiceOver users, but I see the possibilities in it. It's just, out today. I think a year from now, we're going to be talking some great things about voice control.
Yeah, well, different disabilities, people have different requirements and stuff where motion or something comes to play. So the voice is a good choice. I mean, we use wheelchair curb cuts, don't we? So we're trying to use this, and it seems to work pretty good. And you're right, the hints are nice because you're beginning to use it. The sounds are nice because you get some feedback there. And these are all settings that you can use under voice control in the settings. But to me, I see it as a convenience, and that's why I would suggest for people to tell Siri to turn on voice control when you need it, if you don't want it on all the time. And then all you have to do, since it's listening, just say, turn off voice control, and a message will pop up and it'll ask you if it wants to execute it. And if you swipe, then execute it that way.
Yeah, it's the first time executing is good, I guess.
Well, yeah, it is a new era.
Hey, didn't your voice control execute your VoiceOver?
Yes, I actually went to shut off voice control and it shut off voice over, and I froze there for a second, like, wait a second. And I had to remember because I was using my old phone, so I had to do the triple click home. And we said triple click home. We're getting sued again.
Yeah, there we go. And Jeff, I know you could predict the future, so do you see a future episode of That Blind Tech Show? As we know, What's Pissing Off Brian has covered Siri before. Do you think voice control will make it in there a few episodes from now?
Oh, but I think there's so many other pressing things. We've been talking about some of the great things that we really like. I like the music app. I like the podcast app. I like most everything that they have going on right now. And the camera has a lot more information that it gives you when you're trying to take a picture. Left, center, right of center. And there's a lot of new settings in Safari, like the format button up on top where you tap that. You have a choice to go to the desktop version. You can go to Reader, turn on Reader all the time for that particular page. Or down in the bottom, the tabs. That's changed too. Now you have a choice. Get rid of this tab, get rid of all your tabs. It's really neat. So investigate a lot of areas and try that. Double tap, and hold. However, you mentioned something to me, especially the touchiness of the status bar up on top.
Yeah, and before you get to that, I do want to say, as far as apps go, I know there was some talk of people having issues with seeing AI and other apps crashing. I have not had any of my apps crash, and I know this is oftentimes device specific. So these issues that we're talking about, you may not be having them. It could be phone dependent. It could be geographic dependent. Who the heck knows?
Brian, the shadow knows.
Yeah. But the status bar on the 8 Plus, because you weren't having this issue, it seems like, I don't know, you remember a cartoon when we were kids, or maybe when I was a kid, called Inch Eye, Private Eye?
Keep going, Brian. Keep going. You're doing good.
You're like, no. The status bar just seems to have really shrunk down on the 8 Plus. It's a little frustrating, because I do, Jeff, you've pointed out how much I love my notifications. So I use the notification center probably 10 times as much as I use the phone. I'll tell you, I already set a one finger triple tap to bring up my notification center because, as I've established before on this show, I can't afford to lose any more hair. Have you noticed a little shrinkage, Jeff? Were you in the pool?
No, but when I went to my iPhone 7, I tried to replicate the problem that you had told me that you were having, and there it was again. It seems like the more I used it, some things flushed out and some things were more evident because you just get used to it. It's not brand new anymore. So when I went over to my 10s Max, I noticed I can get into a sticky situation with that too. It seems like there's room above the status bar where it'll just go and some of these sounds that they have going on now when you turn on voiceover, if you do a 2-finger spread, like your index and your thumb and spread it open like you make something larger or something.
The voiceover breaststroke?
The voiceover breaststroke. If you do that, if you take your thumb and index finger and start it out right next to each other and spread it apart, it'll go whoop. I did it by accident.
Not wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, we should have voiceover orchestra.
Ooh, customization
coming,
of voiceover
folks.
sounds.
It's coming.
It is. You heard it here first.
iOS 15 will have it by then.
Sponsored by Blind Abilities. We're not doing a what's pissing off Brian now. We're trying to keep this as positive and upbeat because overall iOS 13.1, there's no significant, at least that we've experienced so far, catastrophes. But as I've talked about time and time again, my favorite thing is notifications because I get all my news that way, sports, everything. And I'd heard on 13, a lot of people were having notification focus issues. You on your 10, it doesn't seem to have the issue as much, but I go to expand one notification and another notification, and it's just driving me absolutely insane, Jeff, the focus issues in the notification center.
One thing to watch out for is the vertical navigation bar on the right-hand side. If you touch it and you hear that it says vertical navigation, you can actually do a single finger double tap and hold, and you can slide from 0% to 100%. And another way of interacting with the vertical scroll bar is once you touch it and you hear vertical scroll bar, you can then flick up or down, and it'll go in increments and percentages. So listen to those and you'll get an idea where you are with relationship to how many items you have. Like if you have lots of emails and something's way down there, you can scroll right to the bottom or halfway through and just look around. It's pretty much across the board. Now, what you use that for, I'm not sure, but it seems like to me, if you're a very fast voiceover user and you're swiping really big time, I ended up over in the vertical navigation bar. And that was perplexing a little bit.
Yeah, and I was reading an article in one of the news apps, and it read like 2 paragraphs, and then it said vertical scroll bar. I'm like, wait a minute, that can't be the whole article. And then I did a 3-finger flick up, and it got kind of past that. So it seems like there's probably some focus issues going on right now that hopefully these apps will probably get worked out with updates. But the one in the notification center is perplexing to me. I may even roll back to 12.4. Then I'll probably reinstall 13.1 because the fact that I have no issues on it running the beta of 13.1 and I didn't update the beta 13.1 ... tells me that maybe it was just something got corrupted when I updated. And if I could get that fixed, though, I think for the most part, I'd be loving 13.1 if I could get my notification center working correctly, Jeff.
Yeah, well, some people told me, through the grapevine, I heard that 13.1 beta 4 is not the same build as 13.1 that we all got. So there was a few changes possibly. So I believe 13.2 is right around the corner at the rate they're going because they have not released everything that they promised so far. It's coming out incrementally, a couple of odds and ends here and there. But there's one other thing that I did right away is I went into my phone app, went down. I know phone app, it's in the phone, believe me. But now you can block anybody that's not in your contacts or that you haven't called, that it'll block them and it'll go right to voice messages.
Voicemail. Not voiceover, not voice control.
Voicemail.
Hey, Jeff, we are a PC podcast, so should it be voice people?
I think so, but it is MAIL.
Oh, good point.
That silent I is getting us into trouble.
Yeah.
So from now on, it's OS 13. But no, that's really cool. Everything will roll over to your voicemail and you won't be getting spam calls. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, overall, if you could live with some bugs, like I said, they're not major bugs. They're a couple of headaches. I'd upgrade. It's like I said, if you're like me, you could end up having a notification issue, and this could be device specific. Maybe when I upgraded it, I was standing with the phone in my left hand with my right foot off the floor, and that's why this issue is happening to me, that sort of thing. But overall, though, I think it's a pretty solid. Is it as solid as 12.0? Absolutely not. That was, there were very little bugs in 12.0. 13.1, it seems pretty good. Are you happy with it overall? Will you stay, or are you going to roll back?
No, I'm not rolling back. I'm going to keep moving forward. I can tough it out. There's nothing here that's going to stop me yet. I would call myself a heavy user of the phone. I use it for my business. I use it for play. I use it for everything in between. And you yourself, your screen time, sunrise to sunset and beyond. So the average user is going to love 13.1. The heavy hitters on the iPhone that have tendencies and practices they do all the time, as soon as a glitch comes into there, they'll be frustrated. But it's just like any another update. This is another win for Apple. I think it's leading to something bigger and better. And they've already closed the gap on some of the features that the Androids have, and good for them.
Yeah, and maybe in iOS 14, I'd like to see where we could actually edit what's in the settings menu. So that screen time, delete. Don't show me this, because if I'm awake, I'm using the phone. I don't need no screen time to tell me. But think about it. Wouldn't it be kind of cool if we could reorder accessibility to the very top and just kind of, put the things that you use most in the top? But one thing that you can do now with a gesture, I think I did the 2-finger quadruple tap. You know what, Jeff? I do that now. Tap my finger 4 times, twice, and it brings up my voiceover settings, which is a really cool thing to be able to do.
What do you mean you do that twice?
I tap 2 fingers on the screen 4 times in a row. 2 fingers 4 times, that's tough to say. And it opens my voiceover settings. I just set that up as a command.
Or with voice control, you can open apps. There's so many different ways that we can access the phone, the settings, and everything like that. Everyone's going to be taught differently. Everyone's going to learn differently. I like that there's so many options for everybody. That's inclusive right there, isn't it?
And one gesture that I tested out before I did this on my phone, I went into the store here, the Spectrum mobile store. Yeah, that we have one of those here. And, I haven't had a 10. I've always had a home button. And my biggest fear, as I've talked about, is losing that home button. I love now, though, that you could set a gesture command to just go to the home screen. So I always, in the limited time I've had, swiping up with that 1-finger gesture.
Whoa, Brian, PG, man.
I just set the 2-finger flick left on the store phone to go to home screen, and it works perfectly. And one of the things about these gestures and the voices, if you set them to activities, they're so fast. There's very little delay in performing the task or switching to the voice, which really impresses me.
Yeah, I've seen on the Mac over the years that there was a delay. There was a significant, you could tell something was happening. And now with the way it's running, and this is on my XS Max and my iPhone 7. So anyone with a phone in between there, or if you got the 11 now, I tell you, this stuff is lickety, flickety, quickety fast.
Yeah.
And to tell you the truth, I'll probably be using slide to text a lot more. And even while I was editing this, Brian sent me a text to let y'all know that he's starting to like it. So slide to text. Who knows? Give it a chance.
Yeah. I just had a 2-finger double tap from 6 years ago on my iPhone 5S finish. Actually, I guess that would be more like 9 years ago. No, that was the 3GS, so I can't. Don't ask me to do math. I was told there'd be no math.
No. Serena, when she's listening to this podcast, it'll take her a minute too. So
Yeah. So anyway, Serena, we love you. We just jumped on. We figured we'd do a quick show. We are thatblindtechshow@gmail.com. Thanks for all the emails. You can also tweet us in @blindtechshow, where somebody posts kind of snooty. And for now, we are out.
Hello.
All right, boys. Cue our funky music, right?
When we share
what we see
through each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap between
the limited expectations
and the
reality of blind abilities.
The realities of blind
abilities.
For more podcasts with a blindness perspective, check us out on the web at www.blindabilities.com, on Twitter @blindabilities. Download our app from the App Store, Blindabilities, that's 2 words, or send us an email at info@blindabilities.com. Thanks for listening.